You and I have the same problem, and that problem is that we're always chasing time. We're always chasing deadlines. We are short on time. You, as a UPSC aspirant, have to read the newspaper. You have to keep track of current affairs, read Bipin Chandra, Lakshmikant, perhaps attend classes, and everything else that comes as a package in being a UPSC aspirant. I, on the other hand, have to do my official duties, perform my professional responsibilities well. I need to take care of family obligations. I need to take care of everything else that comes along with being an adult, including taking care of my health, taking out time for exercise, creating these videos for you, designing these assignments, checking your emails, replying to your emails. All of these things I have to do in that same period of time, which is of 24 hours, which you also have. Now, this session, this video is going to be about how to do this, and I will be sharing with you some things which I have learned over the past many years from hit and trial, not only from my own experiences, but from what science is telling us. Okay, so this is not going to be a typical structure your day according to this type of timetable type of lecture. I'm going to be telling you what exactly the science of time management and productivity is saying, how best to utilize it for yourself, and as much as your UPSC preparation and your challenges are concerned, I'll give you some very, very prescriptive and actionable points. But please listen carefully and make sure that you implement these, because that's the only way that they will ever work. The first thing I need to tell you, without further ado, is that we think that productivity is about time, right? It's about time management. You want to do more, right, in the least amount of time. You want to read this book, you want to read this book, you want to read the newspaper, you want to read your notes, you want to read your Insight IAS, Forum IAS notes. Everything else requires time, and this examination is drawing near every single day. What do you do about this? What is the issue? What is the solution to this issue, right? The first thing you need to understand that it is not about time. The currency of productivity is not time. The currency of productivity is energy. I will explain exactly why this is and why and how science has told us what it is and what to do about it, right? The productivity, in as much as it is concerned, the currency of it is energy and not time. So that's one thing for you to always consider, right? It's about energy management. Now, what do I mean by energy management? What I mean is this. Say perhaps you go to work, or you're a working professional, or that you have to attend college and you have to travel, you have to commute, you have to expend energy, you have to expend willpower in everything that you need to do. You need to get dressed, you need to travel there, you need to do whatever it is that is required from you, and all of this will drain you of your energy. At the end of the day, you come back to something like this tome, this difficult convoluted legal book composed of pages after pages, passage after passage of factual data which can overwhelm even the best minds. And there is no surprise that you do not feel like reading it, even if you have an hour or two. Everybody has an hour or two. But the question is, do you have the energy? Do you have the willpower to even consume this type of content at that time? And the answer is typically no. And this is a common and a acceptable and normal reaction to this type of situation, right? So I will be sharing with you, like I said, everything that I have learned in this video. I have encapsulated every single insight which I possibly could in this video, including something which I have never shared with anybody. So here goes. Like I mentioned, the real currency of productivity is willpower. This is coming directly from scientific research. Psychologists, what they did was they took two sets of people, right? And they gave those people difficult tasks which required willpower, right? Tasks which required willpower, which required actual conscious extra effort, like the type of questions you get in GMAT or GRE. That is something that requires effort. Controlling your diet when you are hungry, not eating carbohydrates, not really indulging in eating that cake or that cheesecake in front of you, requires hard work. They gave these two sets of people these difficult tasks, right? And then they tested them on other tasks. Then they did another set of experiments in which one group was given the difficult task, the other group was not given the difficult task. Repeated time and again, this study revealed that the people who did difficult tasks before were less likely to perform well in every subsequent task. This research became very popular, and it was concluded, and it can be interpreted. It is that willpower is like a currency. In the day, you have a certain amount of willpower and no more than that. This is normal, okay? So don't beat yourself up about feeling down and not feeling motivated enough. It's completely normal because it is a currency and it gets expended. You spend it. You spend it, whether or not you like it, in whatever it is that you've been doing through the day. is very important to understand and then to manipulate this energy, and that's what I'll try to do today. So willpower is like an energy. It will get depleted as you go along the day, right? What do? You manage time on three levels, right? You manage it at the level of your day, which I'll be telling you about in detail. Manage it at the level of the weeks. Manage it at the level of months, and for you in your case, because it's a long-term goal that you are pursuing. And most things which are worthwhile in life are long-term goals. That includes getting a better body, building better relationships, or clearing a difficult exam like you're trying to do. It needs to be structured on three different levels: your daily expenditure of energy and time, your weekly expenditure of your main broad goals and deadlines, whatever they might be, and how those deadlines are contributing to your ultimate goal in the manner of your long-term roadmap or your ultimate journey, which I'll tell you about all these three levels. First thing to consider: when you are trying to manage your energy levels per day, I'm talking about the daily management of time and energy right now, right? And this is coming straight from this research in willpower that I told you about. Here is the thing: it will get depleted 100%. So what do? You use it to consume the most difficult type of content first. Okay, how do you do this? Lakshmikant, for example, or any difficult text, for example, is best consumed in the morning when your willpower presumably is at its peak. Okay, as you go along in the day, it will get depleted. Might have to go to work, you might have to attend classes, whatever that might be, whatever it is. The maximum amount of effort that you will expend in your day should be spent in the most difficult task possible, and that difficult task is something which requires conscious mental effort, whether that is memorizing or you learning new material. If you are learning new material which you have not been exposed to, it will require a lot of mental effort to make those connections. Okay, and pretty much all of this core fundamental stuff, whether that's history or polity or economics in the UPSC, at least in the first round, when you're building that base of knowledge, when you're doing big picture formation, first reading, whatever it is that you're doing, will require extra mental effort. Do those things in the morning. It is highly recommended. I know that you have questions about the newspaper. When should that be read? I do not recommend or think that it should be read in the morning. I think it is best used or completed during the evening, not late evening, because that is a slot for something else. I'll tell you about that. It is best consumed, newspaper is best consumed in the evening. The most difficult content, the most challenging content, whether you are doing polity or you're doing your optional subject, should be done in the morning. In the afternoon, typically what happens is that people tend to have a decline in energy levels. This is because cortisol starts to rise. Cortisol is a hormone which I don't want to get into right now, but it starts to rise and it causes the body to become slightly sluggish. Your nervous system will slightly dampen down in its energy expenditure, right? So you will need to do something easier during that time. During mid afternoons, whether you are at work or something else, do not schedule anything strenuous on yourself. Do something light, if at all. And even if you do not do something during this time, it's perfectly fine. Just get through your day, just get through your work, just get through your college, learn what you can without spending too much energy, because you probably will not have that amount of energy at that time. Then comes late night. What do you do in the late night? In the late night, before you're going to bed, you should take a look at everything that you have read during the morning, and you need to have a type of a detail where you can just glance at what you did in the morning, which you want to commit to memory. So for instance, if you're reading this book and if you have read the chapter on legislature and you want to know, and you just read in the morning how laws are passed and what procedures are followed in the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha, right? So that contains a lot of factual detail. You read it in the morning, in the night. Do not stress yourself with new content. Just go over it once. And this is again coming from psychology. Apparently, memory is consolidated during sleep, right? And so by doing a cursory review of whatever you want to commit to memory just before sleep, especially before night sleep, has proven to be the best in terms of retention. Also remember that every time you read a text, every time you read anything, the level of retention will be only 30%, more or less, right? If you read 100 pages, you will not remember the content of more than 30 of them. And with every reading, this starts to gradually grow. But with every day that you have not read that content, that amount of retention will begin to decrease and will continue decreasing, so that as more time passes, the least amount of content is stored in your mind, unless you commit it to long-term memory. This is why I'm recommending that you do this late night cursory revision of your content. Coming to the next very important part, there is going to be an energy crash in the day. Like I said, usually in the afternoons, most human beings get a increased level of cortisol in their blood, which makes them slightly sluggish. This may be different for you, but in most cases this happens. Second, crash will happen after a meal, after especially a carbohydrate rich meal. If you have consumed carbohydrate rich meals, this is very likely to cause a dip in energy, a dip in your motivation, a dip in your productivity. And this is completely understandable. There is no need for you to, as such, radically change your diet. Just know and just time these crashes. Know when they're going to happen so that you don't stress yourself with other things, and then you can use those time to rejuvenate yourself, which I'll tell you. The third time when a crash will happen is exactly around 5 to 6 hours after you have consumed caffeine. If you are using coffee, if you are drinking tea, any caffeine based or stimulant based supplement, whether that's from caffeine or tea or whatever it is going to leave your body, slowly get metabolized, and it's going to leave your body. And in 5 to 6 hours, you will feel the caffeine crash. Okay, anticipate this and time your caffeine accordingly. I do this personally to a lot of benefit to my own self, and I'll be sharing exactly what my own protocol is. Then, when the crash occurs, as it inevitably will occur, please treat yourself. Please understand this. I told you willpower is like currency, right? It will begin to decline and you will start to use it, right? You use it in your commute, a little bit has gone there. You use it in your work, a little bit has gone there. Use it in an argument that happens in the day with your partner or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever that might be, a little bit has gone there. It will continue to diminish unless you are trying to deliberately, consciously reignite it in a way. How do you reignite it? You reignite it by something called dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain. It is secreted when something pleasurable is experienced. Okay? So you need to treat yourself. Whenever you treat yourself to a really good cup of coffee, to a really good meal, to something that you really enjoy, your brain is secreting dopamine, and that is what makes you feel good. Okay? Make sure that when moments of crash come, or when you want to increase that energy levels, when you want to increase those feel good hormones, use dopamine by rewarding yourself appropriately at the right amount of time. The best time to do so is right before you have a scheduled study session, or when the energy in your system is at the lowest, which I told you is likely to happen on one of those 2 or 3 different times of the day, right? So it's all about dopamine, and you can calibrate dopamine levels in your brain to some extent by making sure you are rewarding yourself during the day in equal intervals of time at the right amounts of time. Okay, so the only thing to consider is that you should really enjoy that experience. If that enjoyment through pleasure is happening, that means dopamine is getting secreted. It's going to do wonders for productivity, at least for your energy management. Then comes another important issue. And this is something which I will have to do a complete video on, something which is very, very important. I think equally important as the one which I'm doing right now. And this is deep focus. How do you enter states of flow? How do you enter states of absolute concentration in which time stops? This is something which is documented again from psychology by the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who was a brilliant psychologist who wrote the popular book Flow, and he did a lot of research on flow. And flow is a state of unfettered attention. It is a state of complete concentration, complete absorption, in which all your mental energy, all your cognitive resources are dedicated to one task. You become so engrossed, so absorbed in that task that time absolutely stops. People report a cessation of time stopping in which they are not able to detect how much time has elapsed. This is the state we want to reach all the time. It is also a highly pleasurable and addictive state, this state of flow. I will do a complete video about how to tap into this state, but the more you tap into this state while studying, the higher the quality of your preparation is going to be. Now comes something very interesting and something rather controversial, and that is stimulants and supplements. Can you take stimulants and supplements to enhance this energy and to calibrate these uh, neurotransmitters and the state of your brain? Really, everything depends on the state of your brain. Can it be recharged? Can it be ignited on demand? And yes, the answer is yes. Yes, it can be. And this is what we do when we drink tea or coffee or other supplements. This is what we're trying to do at all times. Why not do it at the time that we require it the most, right? This is where supplements and stimulants come to the picture. I am sharing with you the exact detail of the mixture and the recipe which I myself use. Please bear in mind that it works for me, it might not work for you. Please consult a physician before you take any of the things which I am going to recommend. Please also make sure that you do your independent research and assess the tolerance of your own system before you do so. So this is the mixture which I use. Very simple. 3 ingredients. 1, coffee. Simple coffee. Use any brand. It doesn't matter. It should just have caffeine. We use it for caffeine and for some other metabolites of coffee, which are very good at arousal and stimulating the nervous system. The second thing we used, the very, very important ingredient is this. This is MCT oil. This is MCT oil, and it can be purchased very easily from the pharmacy or from the internet. It is a legal supplement. MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides. Medium chain triglycerides are healthy fats. They are healthy fats which are recommended for heart patients. As such, there are no side effects. And it should be mixed. When you drink your coffee, mix MCT oil in your coffee. At least this is what I do. This is what I do, right? You may or may not do that. Assess your own system accordingly. But when caffeine is mixed with MCT oil, which is a very healthy fat source. By the way, MCT oil itself is very, very good for the brain. Healthy fats are very good for the brain, very good for arousal, very good for memory and attention, and all of this is documented. I will be linking the scientific research behind these assertions below. Please read those before you take any of these supplements. The third ingredient in my cocktail is this, very basic. This is ashwagandha, right? This is ashwagandha churn. This is ashwagandha powder, which I just simply buy from Patanjali. It is available everywhere in the world, more or less. And the reason I use powder, there is a trick here which I am using. So these 3 ingredients form the cocktail which I drink. Okay, why is it being used, and why is it being used, and what's the deal with ashwagandha, and what's the deal with the MCT oil? It is this: ashwagandha is fat soluble. This is a fat soluble compound. It is a very potent anti-anxiolytic compound. The potency of ashwagandha and the benefits of ashwagandha are quite well documented. I am linking some research here. But the thing you need to realize is that it is fat soluble. For me, taking the pills did not work. If it is mixed with a source of fat, it works really, really well, right? And it gets absorbed in the body really well, and it makes the whole system function much better. MCT oil is being used, 1, because ashwagandha is fat soluble and it is a very good source of fat. 2, when MCT oil or any fat source is used with caffeine, the caffeine itself will break down in your body slowly. The fat molecules will make it break down slowly. So what happens when you drink just black coffee or something is that you'll get a huge spike in energy. Maybe you may even get jitters, right? You get a huge spike in energy and then you get a huge crash in energy. When the caffeine metabolizes slowly in your blood, which is what will happen if you take it with a fat source, it will not give you a huge spike in energy and it will not crash. It will give you an even type of energy and it will last for a much longer time. So this is why this cocktail is used. And this cocktail should only be used if you are planning to sleep, because it might disrupt your sleep cycle. Please make sure that you do your research before taking anything. This is something which I use. You may or may not wish to use them. Coming to the next hack. And this is that while traveling or while you are sitting idle in those periods of the day when you are not the most productive, you should consume content through either audio or video, which is the easiest way, the easiest mode, at least for humans, to consume content. We are very, very accustomed and prone and comfortable with consuming visual content or even audio content. Reading text for the brain is the hardest. but consuming video and audio is much easier. So the hack which I wanted to share is that get yourself the YouTube Premium subscription. YouTube Premium subscription. It's rather reasonable. It's not very expensive, and like I've mentioned before in other videos, it will help you keep your phone locked, and it will work even when the phone is in your pocket. This might sound like a small and trivial thing, but let me tell you that add to that 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there of one explanation video or another explanation video or some news article or something, all of these things really add up. The YouTube Premium subscription, I also presumed was not a big deal, but once I got it, I used it for a while. I realized that I'm consuming so much more content than I used to when I didn't have it. Just because of the simple hack that you can lock the phone, keep it in your pocket, plug in your earplug, and just consume the content. And this also makes a huge difference. The next thing I want to share with you, and the way you structure your daily schedules and so on, is Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law says that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. It basically means that if you give a task a large amount of time, it will expand to consume that large amount of time. If you give it a short amount of time, it will get completed in a short amount of time. This is basically what it says. Of course, within the bounds of reasonableness, right? We can't just force squeeze anything into a very short amount of time and hope that it will get done. But you have experienced this effect, the Parkinson's law effect in your life, when you've had a deadline and you had no idea how you would meet that deadline, perhaps just the next day in your college examinations, but you were able to figure out what you need to do just the night before and do enough to get passing marks. Happens to all of us, right? This happens every time we meet a deadline. You make sure if it needs to get done, if it is going to get done, if it is so important that it has to get done, then it will get done. This is Parkinson's law. And this is something which we will use, something which I'll tell you about. Next, meta hack. When you are using your day to slot your study zones, your study slots, right? You're dividing it into slots of time, and you'll say, I'll study from 9 to 11, or I'll study from so and so, whatever. Make sure that that period of slot, that time slot, is no more than 2 hours. 2 hours is also a overreach, in my opinion. Again, this is coming from research in cognitive science. Humans are not capable, for the most part, most humans, of sustaining attention and deep focus for more than about 60 to 90 minutes at a time. This is a big amount of time, trust me. When I say deep focus, I mean deep focus in which you have no distractions. Your mind is focused on the content and you're able to do it. So no more than 2 hour slots at a time. If you are doing a 2 hour slot, you're able to pull it off. Give yourself a break of 15 to 20 minutes. Get that dopamine rush. Get that dopamine rush. Prepare yourself for another sitting of 2 hours, which is going to consume willpower. Like I said, if you have done 2 hours worth of study in a really good sitting, then you have consumed a decent amount of your willpower, and it will have to be replenished, right? So now you know, and you won't make that mistake again. The next meta hack. In a single day, there should be no more than 3 goals. No more than 3 goals. You have to just be brutal with yourself on this one. I have used this extensively. I use it extensively to very good effect every single day. In fact, this is my tasks for today. 1, 2, and 3. No more than 3. And as soon as I finish the first task, which by the way, one of those tasks is to make this video. And as soon as I finish it, and it looks like I will, I'm going to strike it off, and I'm going to take a lot of pleasure in striking it off, right? I want this to become a habit. I want to feel good about it. I want this to give me the dopamine. I want to say to myself, yes, I've done this. Of course, I'll do the other two. I need to push myself. This was, for me, just a little bit of dopamine right there. I did it. If I can do this, then I can do the rest. Right? And that cascading effect is required, but it doesn't happen if you have 16 tasks lined up in a day. No more than 3. No more than 3. This is something I have repeated not only for myself. I have seen many other people who are productivity gurus, supposedly. They all claim to follow the same thing, and it works. Next, when you are structuring your weekly targets, right? Slightly bigger targets which cannot be completed in a day, make sure that there are no more than 2 deadlines in a week. If you have yourself more than two deadlines in a week, I think that it is too much. You will get fatigued. You will not be able to structure your goals scientifically. And again, the scientific research and the rationale behind this is goal setting theory. Goal setting theory is a very well documented research that generated much more ancillary research because of its effectiveness. What it says is that your goals should be small but not too small. They should be challenging but not too challenging, and they should be achievable. So if you have a goal which is not exactly immediately available, but right there in the corner, right? It's just right there. You can almost feel it. You can go and almost touch it just with a little bit of effort. That is the perfect amount of effort that you should structure your goals in. And this is used uh, in the strategizer, which I'll tell you about, but no more than two deadlines in a week. Please remember that. This is very important. Use technology to your benefit and use it extensively. I use it all the time. Here's an example. I use this system on my phone. Remind me to send the assignment to the students at 6 p.m. There you go. All set, right? This is going to remind me whether or not to forget. Make sure you use this extensively. Make sure that every time you have a you are reminded of something, you remember something, make sure you put it there on the system. This is the whole point of having technology in your fingertips. Make sure that it prompts you at the right amount, that at the right time, and make sure you do not just dismiss it. Even if it has prompted you at the right time, your likelihood of completing that task has increased, right? So my own Google Calendar in my own system is filled with these reminders, and I use them extensively. You should also do the same. Now, all of these things that I have told you about, right? These are hacks which, of course, I was aware of and I have been using extensively. But the goal which I wanted to accomplish, at least when I was making this navigator is like my blackboard, everything that I want to say, I am able to pinpoint and tell you guys from the navigator. So the navigator includes a strategizer, as you know. If you don't know, then don't worry about it. You will surely get to know. The strategizer is this portion over here, right? This part over here is a strategizer. This is where you structure and plan your entire journey of the UPSC and break it down into goals. Like I said, no more than two goals in a week, right? Like I said, no more than two deadlines in a week and no more than a few tasks to be completed within a month. All of that has been considered in this strategizer where all the subjects are listed here, right? There's English, math, history, polity, geography, economics, environment, so on and so forth. All of these are further subdivided into the hexa task, right? Which you can use to maintain the quality of your preparation. And right next to each of these is a column which will ask you the estimated date of completion. So I've written here the estimated date of completion. Say for instance, let's say today is the 23rd. Say okay. So I'll give myself 5 days for that. For instance, I'll give myself 5 days for big picture formation for geography. So 5 days from now is going to be the 28th. So I'm going to write the 28th. 28th. Right? So I have given myself a deadline. Now I know when this deadline is coming, and I might even put that deadline on my phone to remind me. If I am not able to complete it on the 28th, say I completed on the 29th, say I completed on the 30th, right? I will write down 30th here. Once I am done, then I will strike it out. This will make sure that I can keep track of my deadlines, and I also know what is coming next, right? And I also know how they're all connected so that I can figure out where I'm going, right? I can figure out that with these weekly targets, ultimately I will end up finishing geography. And then ultimately after geography, I can do the same thing for economics. And after a few weeks, and if all things go according to plan more or less, I will have a decent grounding of geography and economics. You should have this type of mindset. At least you should be able to tell what your next three major deadlines are. At least that much you should be able to tell. I have designed something which will help you in doing that. And that something is the digital strategizer, which is a very scientific tool in which you can manipulate the entire parameter of your preparation. It will not only be showing you these deadlines, including every single micro deadline which you have to follow, but also your entire roadmap, which you will be able to see if I zoom out enough. See, this is your entire roadmap, right? And this should tell you how well you're doing and how much you need to do. You will also be able to figure out what your next targets are based on the inputs which I have already inserted. Say, for instance, you're preparing for the examination, which is in the next few months. So you will find that the time has been allocated accordingly. This will help you track every single one of these goals, of these subject-wise exagems, and you'll also be able to tell how your progress is according to subjects, also according to other things. Now, this digital strategizer you can find with the Navigator. The idea of showing it to you is that whatever you use, whether you use this or you use some other system, make sure those principles, those fundamentals which I shared with you are used in your own system, right? That is the most important thing, and it doesn't matter what type of system you use. The Navigator has been designed and the digital strategizer has been designed to include all of these insights and to make sure your preparation, is structured in the way which is ideal. So there is that. Two, um, finally, the thing you must consider is to have your roadmap clearly laid out in front of you. Like I mentioned, you should be able to say and tell yourself that yes, I am doing geography now. I need to do this and it will take some amount of time, but I know how it will lead to the other goals and how those will lead to my ultimate goal. That broad type of correlation between your deadlines needs to be made. Now, please make sure that you do not get too micromanagerial in this, that you don't get too stuck up in the details, because you will never have a perfect roadmap. It never happens. The only thing you will be able to see is the 3 deadlines ahead of you, right? And then a broad sense of how those 3 deadlines will lead to the next 3 deadlines and how those should lead to the next 3 deadlines. Okay. The only thing you can control and you should control is those next 3 deadlines, and how every day, by managing your time and by manipulating this dopamine and all of those other things that I told you, how you will do those daily tasks, how you will complete those 3 tasks, right? Those 3 tasks, how you will make sure that after doing those 3 tasks every single day, how that one micro goal is being completed and how then that one micro goal is adding to your other goals. Okay, this is the whole crux of the entire time management sutra, so to speak. There is nothing more than that. If you can pull this off, you are in very, very good state. You are doing a wonderful job. But to analyze, to know, really know, how well you're doing, how much you need to do and where you're lacking, I have designed a test for you. This is absolutely free. You can take this test. You will be able to take this test not just once, but multiple times. It's called the Time Management Proficiency Test, although I think it's a misnomer. It should be called Energy Management Proficiency Test. But for the sake of understanding, let's just call it Time Management Proficiency Test. It will ask you a number of questions. It will ask you to calculate your total score. If the score is less than 70%, if the score is less than 70%, then there is some problem in your time management. Something is the matter and you need to fix it. You need to optimize it. You need better tools. Maybe you need a better schedule perhaps, or you need to figure something out. If you're not able to capture your time during the day, you will have to accommodate it during the weekends, or some form of mechanism will need to be used so that these long-term goals of doing these big subjects and then achieving this UPSC uh, uh, mission of yours can be accomplished. If you are scoring 70% or below, something is wrong. If you are scoring 70% or above, you are doing phenomenal. And the only thing you should now focus on is consistency. Just make sure it is maintained at 70%, which also means if, and you should take this test every, I would say every couple of months or every 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, you should take this test. And if your score is dipping below 70, with your honest rating, make sure it is at 70. We don't want it to be more than 70, to be very honest. If it's more than 70, it means you're micromanaging. We don't want to micromanage. We want to leave some room for relaxation, for rejuvenation, for other things which we cannot anticipate. 70% is a very good score for this time management test, and it will, after enough exposure to it, will give you a very good sense of where your problems lie. Is it consistency? Is it time management? Is it energy management? Now, I am willing to bet that the whole issue for you is going to be energy management, because I've been in your shoes before. And let me tell you, when you grow up and when adult life really hits you, this time management issue which you think you have is going to sound like a joke, because life will get so crazy, so hectic after one point in time that you will look back on these days as days of leisure. Remind, and let me tell you, this is a fact. This will happen to you, and I hope it happens to you, because this is the spice of life. This is how you draw pleasure from it, and you must elevate yourself to meet the level of your challenges. And at least in my part, I hope that I am able to do some of it for you by sharing these insights and all of these things which I have been doing myself. And I hope that you can take inspiration and use all this to manage your time better. Now, speaking of time, I need to get going and manage my other time and do the other two tasks which I had scheduled for my day. I hope that you can do the same for yourself. All the best to you. You have my blessing, you have my support, you have my uh, entire strength of goodwill. I hope that you do very well, and I hope to see you successful. Take care of yourself.